Um, and I think kind of going into my meditation of this, David is constantly seeing two realities, right? The reality of his situation, but the reality of the promises of God. And he's seen both. He's seen the promises of God come to pass. He has seen the character of God come to pass, but he sees the reality of his current situation. I love how Sam talked about how it's like a musical term and it's like the blues. And, the blues are powerful. And even though many generations, the roots are many generations ago, I think that evolved into different forms like country music. Country music is really, um, I don't know what the term is, emotional or real. I'm not typically a country music fan, um, but here we have David. His reality right now is that everyone is lying to him. Everyone is leaving him. They're not faithful anymore. There's no loyalty. There's probably betrayal. I was thinking about Joshua and Bell uh, yesterday. And so here David is in the middle of that. He's like, no one is faithful anymore. There's all those who I thought were loyal. They're vanished. They're gone from the human race. And now everyone is lying to their neighbor, and they flatter with their lips. In this case, flattering is not complimentary. They're not complimenting them. They're basically deceiving and trying to say what people want to hear to get their own way. That's what this flatter word means. But harbor deception in their hearts. And so basically, people's let him down, and look what David does. He looks to God right away. He looked all around, and he probably felt all alone. And he declares to God that everyone stopped being godly, and those who he thought were committed to God, they're failing in their commitments. And honestly, if you've been a Christian a long time, if you've walked with God a long time, I think you're going to feel this way. I mean, obviously, I felt this way. Elijah in scriptures have felt that way. I know Apostle Paul has felt that way, and of course, Jesus felt that way. He felt alone. He felt deserted. He felt everyone abandoning him as he endured the cross. I mean, even if I could say on the cross, he felt like his father had forsaken him. He says, my God, why have you forsaken me?" But in any case, I think we all feel times where we feel that way, and so we can identify with David. And you know, I don't know about your journey, but I think a human experience is that sometimes when everyone leaves you or abandons you, you wonder. I wonder, should I continue being faithful? Should I continue having 714? Should I continue having prayer meetings? Should I continue having life groups? I mean, no one is, you know, um, everyone is leaving it. No one's being a part of it, and I'm not trying to, just, you know, unload stuff, but I think like, life group leaders probably feel the same way, um, and then people will tell you the things that they think you want to hear. And so David experiences that, but he goes to God and he says in verse 3, "May the Lord silence all the flattering lips and every boastful tongue, and those who say, by our tongue we will prevail." And then the Lord answers, the Lord speaks, and he says, he hears the groans of the needy, he sees the oppression of the poor, and he says, "I will arise and I'll protect them." And that's consistent with who God is, right? I mean, that he has a heart and wants to protect the lowly, the poor, the oppressed, the violated. And um, and and then David in verse 6 says that the words of the Lord are flawless, and then talks about the refining and the pruning and things like that. I mean, not only are the parables of Jesus talking about pruning. Not only is the Malachi passage relevant, in terms of the truth of refining. We experience that in our everyday life, whether it be in our families, whether it be in our marriages, whether it be in relationships, whether it be at work. There's always this refining period of maybe making mistakes and failures, maybe learning from those mistakes, maybe getting feedback, maybe getting negative feedback. Everything is part of this process of refining. And depending on your perspective, we may see that as cutting down or taking away from us. But if we hold on to the perspective of Psalm 12, in verse 7, you, Lord, will keep the needy safe and protect us forever from the wicked. And so there's this process happening as we're going through the reality of our lives. And remember, the reality of David's life in this snapshot is that everyone is faithless, everyone is gone, everyone is abandoning me. I'm all alone. I'm in quarantine. I'm isolated. But the Lord will keep the needy safe. He'll protect us forever from the wicked. And and so these are things that we can hold to be true, and the promises. We don't know how that's going to look like, but that's the hope that we hold on to. And so yeah, I know I've read Psalm 12 in the past. And how do I know I've read Psalm 12 in the past? Because typically, just like reading Genesis at the beginning of the year, I go back and read Psalm 1, and maybe I'll last until Psalm 23 and then, fall off. But I know I've read this many times before and not have to had engaged in it this way. But now that we've engaged in it, or now that I've engaged in it, it's like, wow, this simple psalm that's so easy to um, kind of read over is actually quite deep if we would engage in it. So, um, amen, amen, amen.